Welcome back, artists, and if it's your first time, welcome. I'm Wyatt Paints, and this week my longtime sponsor Supershark has finally finished off their trinity to the absolute universe with the Dark Knight himself, Batman. Now, truth time, I've never been a huge Batman fan, and that shouldn't be a surprise as often as I've mentioned that I'm a Marvel maniac. Excelsior! And my ranking of Batman movies tends to start fights. Batman Forever, Batman 66, Batman Dark Knight. Yeah, I know I'm weird, but Jim Carrey as the Riddler? It's peak! But with that said, absolute Batman is a beast! He's walking around with a freaking bat axe, lopping off limbs like he's selling prosthetics. Dude, he's got daggers in his bat ear thingies. I love it. What even is that? I don't know, but I can get behind it. So I'm super stoked to have the absolute version be the first Batman statue on the channel. As you can tell, I'm pretty hype about this, so I don't want to waste time. Meet me over at the painting table. I'm going to grab my brushes and we can get started. Before I start painting, there is an issue I need to tackle first. You see, this statue came with a really cool tattered cape blowing in the wind, but it's a very complicated shape to print, and try as I might, I couldn't get a clean print of it. But the artist over at Supershark did us a solid by cutting it up a bit, though it presents a new problem to solve when it comes to addressing those seams. Now, before I glue anything, I want to sand down any support marks left on the cape. It's a whole lot easier to do this now without the other parts of the cape getting in the way. Additionally, if I were to wait until I glued all the pieces of sand, I would risk possibly breaking the joint and making the seams worse. Here, I'm using some 80 grit sandpaper to quickly eat away the support pimples. I like to keep my sandpaper in these sandwich bags labeled with the grit. That way I can buy my sandpaper in full sheets and just cut them down to smaller squares. It saves me money and lets me keep them sorted in smaller pieces, as I've never needed a whole sheet for a job. After sanding, I'm going to need a quick dry fit to let me know how bad of a seam I'm dealing with. Personally, I always fit the parts so that the most visible seam is as close as I can get it. With capes, this tends to be the outside, while the inside will be mostly hidden by Batman's body. So from now on, I'm going to call them the show side and the ugly side respectively, because while I'll be addressing both sides, I'll only be getting the ugly side up to an acceptable level, while I strive for perfection on the show side. No point in doing extra work. Once glued up, I'll need a few more tools. First, some resin in a blacked out bottle with a needle tip, and second, a handheld UV light, and of course, appropriate PPE. I only need a thin bead along the seam and then a cure. And as a few pro tips, be sure to work in small sections at a time. Laying down long ropes of resin can quickly lead to it dripping on you. Curing often with a UV light will prevent this. And just like with painting, you really don't want to get this done in just one pass, and rather use multiple thin passes. Not only does it keep the resin more under your control, thick layers can have issues curing completely. Now, most of these seams will be pretty easy to get smoothed out, except one. While most of the cuts run parallel with the details, which not only keeps the process simple, even if you aren't able to get it completely gone, it'll more blend in with the other details. But this cut right here goes perpendicular across the details and is considerably more difficult to handle. Why will be a bit clearer with a visual aid. If we imagine the cross section of the seam, the ones that run with the detail look fairly even and regular, making it pretty easy to level the sides because it's so consistent. While the one going across the details looks like this, sort of like traveling over a bunch of hills and valleys, making it a lot harder to level the sides. Plus, you can very quickly end up with pooling in the valley, compounding the issue. But with a bit of patience and following the tip of using as little as possible to fill it, it should get you through 90% of the seams you come across. As usual, I slightly overfill the seams here, so I just need to sand down the little hump. While sanding, I'm watching how the dust is acting. I'm looking for any spots where it's getting caught and creating a sharp line. This is a sign that there's still a lip and it needs more attention. But be sure to double check what kind of attention it needs. You can do this by running your fingernail over it. You should be able to tell if it's a bump that needs more sanding or if it's a pothole that needs a touch more resin. And as I mentioned, I'm keeping the sanding on the ugly side to a minimum. It doesn't need to be perfect, just acceptable. There, that looks pretty good. But it's not a good idea to just leave it like this. It's time to switch to a 220 grit paper and sand out those deep scratches I left. With a light touch and a bit of due diligence, the cape was ready for a quick prime and I was good to start painting. Starting our project proper, I have a nice chunky base of rocks and earth. A typical issue painting a base like this is deciding what is rock and what's dirt. Sometimes the surface textures can be a bit ambiguous, but I have a plan. Starting with brute strap brown, I quickly based everything that had round edges. And during this time, I'm able to get pretty intimate with all the nooks and crannies. This way, I'll have a better idea of what I need to be stone. Once dry, it needed a bit more contrast, so I gave it a generous coat of sepia ink to deepen all of the crannies I got familiar with. No thinking here, just slap this down all over the brown, and make sure there's no pooling. With the ink nice and set, I can now use leather brown and a light dry brush all over the dirt, giving the earth plenty of contrast and definition, but still painting fast and wild, just with a sharper eye on my paint loads. I don't want to blank out all those cool details I've built up. With the dirt done, I moved on to the stone by switching to deep gray and cutting out the rock shapes around the base. Using a stiff bristle brush here not only gave me a sharp edge to make it easier to cleanly cut out the rocks, but keeping the brush angled at about 45 degrees lets the bristles skip over the deeper pits, letting the textured surface give me a natural looking stone. It's pretty easy to do, so long as you keep a close eye on your paint loads. Using a technique like this lets me skip over the shading pass and jump right to the highlight of ash gray. Just like with the dirt, this needs to be a light, rough dry brush, but with a lower paint load. Other than that, feel free to get a little squirrely with it, and be sure to hit it evenly from all sides. It should only take a few minutes to get it done. Now the base has a couple of props that need to get dialed up, starting with this Wayne Enterprise plaque. And since I want this to stand out from the other stone, I'm using the black primer as a base coat and diving right in with a medium dry brush of deep gray. This way it'll grab the eye and stand out a bit from the other rocks. And since I want this to be a little darker, I'm going to forgo the highlight. Now for the raised letters, I pulled out my good friend Death Metal. My goal here is to only get about 80% coverage so that the darker grays give me some automatic shadows. And thanks to the letters being so high up, I have plenty of room to dust them without risking the dark stone. Finally, to give it a bit of shine, I moved on to Greedy Gold and the lightest paint load yet. I really want to slow down the application of this as much as I can to get ultimate control. Slowly feathering this on will give me very sophisticated pops of shine while still looking naturally weathered. Looking pretty good. One more prop to go. And it's a fairly basic I-beam. Usually I do these in copper or flat red, but I think that would clash a bit with the rest of the base, so I settled on a basic silvery metallic. First up, gunmetal for a rough base. I don't really want to try to get complete coverage, as again, the black primer will be serving as my shadow tone. Afterwards, I stippled on some oil stain to dull down some of the shine that the gunmetal created. This way, it'll still have a bit of reflectiveness without being too clean and distracting. With it all cured, I dry fitted the base together, and so far, it's really fitting that absolute universe vibe. Before I get on to Batman himself, I'd like to take a few seconds to thank my subscribers over on Patreon. You see, much like absolute Bruce Wayne, I'm pretty much broke and living in a sewer. At least I would be if it wasn't for the generosity of the pillars of our community. Each month, their contributions allow me to jazz up my ramen dinners and buy a bottle of paint every now and then. But before they had their names etched into the walls of greatness, they were viewers just like you. So if you would like to join the painting pantheon, you'll find a link to my Patreon below. Or you can support the channel right here on YouTube by subscribing, liking, and leaving a comment. And if you want to be extra cool, you can go to sleep with my painting playlist going. I could really use the watch hours. Now, I can't sit here and talk about the support I received without mentioning this week's sponsor, Supershark. I've worked with them a very long time, and month after month, they have yet to let me down. Every statue is comic accurate and just dripping with details. Be sure to use their link below and support the studio that supports the channel. And they're still offering a huge statue and bust welcome pack to keep your printer working. So, if you want to get your hands on this and many other STLs, be sure to check out their Patreon. Heck, you might just find your next project. For now, I can hear Bruce brooding in the background. Let's get back to work. Getting going on the Batsuit, I want to start with the dark sections first. And while I want to break the rule of not using pure black, because if anybody deserves pure black, it's absolute Batman here, even still, I respected the rule and mixed up some very dark gray with a 50-50 mix of black and deep gray. I'm not really trying to get full coverage here. That's why I'm using the floofy brush. This way, I should be able to preserve the primer and the deeper details, especially in the high detail areas like the boots and the gloves. This will help give these areas a decent amount of contrast when I highlight them. I kept with this in mind as I moved on to Bruce's kinetic cape, with the ugly side getting about 80% coverage to maintain a good amount of the primer in the deepest folds, with the show side getting closer to 95%, as this side would get even more lighting naturally. Now for a highlight, I switched to a pure deep gray and a nice big floof to lay down a super light dry brush. Paint load control is going to be paramount, as I want this to build up as slow as I can manage. If done right, I'll get a nice crisp edge highlight on all the details without the areas looking any brighter. This should stay pretty subtle and will really pay off in the high detail areas like the cowl and his hands. When it comes to the cape, having patience and giving the highlight time to develop is key. Trying to rush this and leaving too much paint on the brush will give me very noticeable and heavy-handed streaks rather than the feather soft transitions I want. Belief in the process will pay off if you give it the chance to. Moving on to the brighter sections of the suit, ash gray is going to be my bread and butter. Now, the difficulty here is the fabric texture. These types of super tight textures are notorious at repelling paint, and a lot of newer painters would be tempted to slap on thick coats, but doing so will randomly fill in a lot of the detail, resulting in a loss of texture and a patchy final look. Instead, keep the paint load under control and use a stiff bristle brush like this in a bit of a stabby application, followed by vigorous sweeping to ensure the paint is spread as thin as possible. And this isn't going to completely cover in just one go. That's okay and expected using such a light color over black. You're going to get a better overall appearance using 2 or 3 thin coats than if you used one thick one. To highlight, it's back to Big Floofer with a touch of Company Gray. Just like highlighting the dark sections, I need this to build slowly, so a very low paint load is in order. Also, restricting my stroke direction down towards the feet will establish directionality of the light, simulating an overhead light source. Just pay extra attention on the legs where the boots start. You really don't want to overshoot and brighten up those nice dark boots we work so hard on. Next, it was time to clean up the insignia on his chest of woven Kevlar. Once again, using a 50-50 mix of black and deep gray to match the other dark sections. Just be sure to switch to a decent detail brush to get clean edges. And since I want this to be pretty much the darkest portion of the suit, I chose to skip highlighting this altogether. Then I moved down to his belt, first with a quick reset of flat black to clean up all the overspill from laying down the gray. After which, deep gray then came back for a bit of detailing on the lips of all the pouches. A tiny 00 or even 000 brush would definitely come in handy here. Try not to be intimidated with a detail like this, even if your hands are on the shaky side. Since we're painting over a black base, cleaning up any stray touches will be easy peasy. Centering in on the belt buckle, I went back to death metal to lay down a fairly scratchy base of color. I want to control the reflectiveness here, so a 90% coverage is what I'm shooting for. The only real concern here is making sure I control my strokes to not overshoot and gunk up my earlier work. Finally, a quick highlight of greedy gold to catch the edges of the buckle adds some needed definition. I also used the greedy gold to dot each button. While this isn't strictly comic accurate, I felt it could use a few pops of color to add a bit of visual interest. Besides, it's my model and artistic license totally applies. Now it's time to finish up Bruce's head. First, with a couple of quick touches of company gray to quickly fill in his eyes. Areas like this can be pretty tight, so extra focus on paint load is important. This is the kind of detail that can flood out very fast, so starting small and slowly enlarging them until they fit usually will give you better results. If you do flood out though, remember, you'll want to clean this up with a 50-50 mix of black and deep gray to match the rest of the cowl. For his skin, I want to stick to similar tones I used for Absolute Diana and Clark, being slightly red shifted. So I set up my wet palette with Basilisk Red and Jasper Skin, then made a 50-50 mix for a mid-tone. This will simplify the skin into 3 easy steps. First, an all-over base of Basilisk. Just be sure to thin your paint properly here. It'll make layering up the color easier, and make sure that the skin doesn't end up looking chunky. With the base down, I moved on to the mixed tone to block out all the areas that should get the most highlighting. A good rule of thumb for this is if it's flat or sticks out from his face, it should be highlighted, while also doing your best to leave a bit of a DMZ leading into all the deeper creases. Once the first blocking pass is down, I go back with a second pass, this time not only covering the blocked in areas, but also pushing the color closer and closer to the creases to thin them down. This way, I should get near full opacity in the high areas with a graduation towards the shadow. Finally, moving on to just Jasper Skin, I'm going to repeat blocking out the highlights like before, just covering smaller areas. When doing this, do your best to brush towards where you want it the brightest, as wherever you lift up your brush will have the heaviest deposit of paint. For the second pass, I thinned down the paint a little bit more than usual. And like the previous step, we're going to extend the highlight, but this time push it all the way into the creases. It's going to smooth out the transitions like before and knock down some of the extreme contrast that we've built up to a more reasonable level for skin. If your paint is thin enough, you can do this without fear of it completely washing out the details. I reinforced the shadows with a touch of soft tone. I kept this restricted to just the key areas like under the lip and these hard creases on his maw. It also came in handy as a cleanup for the transition to his mask. This was followed up by some lip attention using my mixed skin mid-tone. Just pay attention to how far down this goes so you can keep the dark underside. Moving in for the teeth, I gave them a quick base of skeletal bone. Followed by a thin wash of soft tone to give separation for each tooth. Then a few carefully placed touches of bone spikes to highlight each of his top teeth. Skipping the bottom ones here will save a whole lot of stress of trying to sharpshoot them and also leave them slightly in shadow, giving bats a slight overbite. Time to move down to his hands and get some gunmetal on all those armored pieces. Again, not exactly comic accurate here, but I just think it looks cool, so it's happening. You can make this section a bit easier on yourself if you use the side of your brush like this. And don't forget, it's extra important to thin down your metallics. The metal pigments are notoriously chunky. If you want them to lay down smooth, you need that paint nice and loosey-goosey. At this point, there's just one more detail to paint. His frickin' bat axe! That's so metal! Now, I wanted it to be a very dark metal, but I had run out of black metal a few videos ago, so I had to mix up using shining silver and regular old flat black. Then, just like the buckle, I used a dry brush to lay down a scratchy base, controlling the overall shininess. For a highlight, I'm going to be using just the shiny silver, but I wanted it super light, so I used most of the back of my hand to ensure that the paint was barely coming off my brush before touching the axe. The goal here is to only catch the hard edges with a sharp highlight, and it just so happens the skin on your hand is a great judge for this. But even with the extra hand insurance, staying focused on what I'm trying to paint will go a long way ensuring that the axe stays as dark as possible while still giving the axe plenty of definition. After just a few minutes, the axe was looking beastly, so I glued it up and called him done. And holy artistic expression, Batman! You're looking dangerous! Look at that frickin' axe! Bruce is looking ready to fee-fi-fo and chop down Bane, even after he goes all Akira. If you know, you know. Now, to be perfectly honest, I've been dreading when I would paint my first Batman for the channel, mainly because I was expecting a jury duty level of boredom that comes with painting 50 Shades of Grey. But thankfully, the sculpt Supershark provided was so dang cool I didn't even notice. Hats off to them for another amazing sculpt. And of course, being a longtime sponsor that made this video possible in the first place. But what do you all think? Between Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman, which of the absolute universe versions are the most metal? Let me know in the comments. And if you liked the video, please like the video, it helps out a lot. As for what's coming up next on the channel, I've got several projects lined up that I have to jump onto, so this is gonna have to be goodbye. But as always, thanks for watching, stay creative, always enjoy the process.